the evening. First, we've just gone through introductions. We'll talk a little bit about course logistics and answer any very quick questions. We'll go really in depth into what is recruiting and what does the process look like. We'll talk about how you can build experience and get yourself up and going in the tech recruiting landscape. We'll talk about how to write a targeted resume that really makes you stand out to recruiters. We'll talk about how to form your LinkedIn so it tells your story. And finally, we'll talk about recruiting tactics that make you stand out to recruiters and help you to succeed in job fairs and other situations.
Can I also ask, are we recording right now? Because I can't tell.
We are recording.
We are. Okay, sorry. Ignore my messages in our group chat.
Okay. So it's worth noting at the very beginning as well that we'll have question breaks throughout. So feel free to put your questions in the chat or privately to any one of us. You can also go to our website and message any one of us either through email or Facebook or however is most comfortable for you. We are here to help you. So any way you'd like to contact us, we're here. We will hold class on Zoom every Thursday at 8 p.m. For the next 2 weeks, we'll also have a crash course week. So we'll be going through a lot of different varied topics from data science to PM to, you've seen the whole list. We have something really for every area of tech, and we're really excited to get you guys acquainted with those. Our course website is the main place for any updates and information. That's tinyurl.com/catacourse. We'll also send out announcements through our listserv. If you're not lined up, if you're not signed up to that, just message one of us, we'll get you on that. And check the course website if you're ever in doubt. That is the ultimate source of information.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the content for the software engineering section of this course. And so these are some of the topics I will be covering. And these might seem unfamiliar to you, but these are a lot of the common interview topics that people see. And so we're highly recommending CS 201 as a prerequisite. It might not be necessary, but a lot of the content we're covering is going to build on top of concepts you learn from that class. And maybe you can do them concurrently as well. And then, so each class will be, you'll have an introduction to the given like algorithm paradigm or technique. And we'll like either go through some like base level theory or do some example problems to help kind of convey the topic. And then we'll run through some like bigger examples that'll help demonstrate some skills that you need for tackling an interview. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how we'll structure each class.
It's worth noting too that for those of you who are currently in CompSci 201, or for those of you who haven't taken CS 201 in a while, we'll be hosting a crash course of all that information. Just a review to get you ready for this course. We also want to talk a little bit about what this course is not. My video cut out, so apologies if this is a reiteration. This course is not necessarily a one-stop shop. Ultimately, getting ready for your interview is going to take work on your part, and we're really here to help you do that. We're here to help you, get introduced to concepts and connect with mentors, but ultimately, putting in the work is what's going to really drive a successful interview prep course. So we are here for you however
you may see fit.
So in addition to our usual suite classes, as I mentioned a little bit before, we'll hold a crash course the next 2 weeks in design, data science, building startups, venture capital, and product management. We'll also have more special events and other types of things through the semester. So definitely stay tuned. We'll have more info in our email blasts to our listserv. So let's talk a little bit about the recruiting process. Duke as a whole can feel very, very pre-professionally oriented. It's important, really important not to compare yourself to the people around you. Recruiting is all about you, the recruiter, and the company. If you ever feel overwhelmed, just as a note before all of this, feel free to reach out to any of us. It is a tough process, and this is going to be a tough season to recruit, which is why we are here however we can. All right, here's a brief overview of the recruiting timeline. We'll have an initial resume drop with different companies. We'll ask you to, enter your information. Sometimes they'll ask for your resume in a PDF, and then for some reason ask you to enter all of your experience again. Just be on the lookout for that LinkedIn. And a lot of them will have a screening or a coding challenge of some sort.
You cut out from there.
Cut out for a minute? Where did I cut out from?
You came back with LinkedIn.
Nice. Okay. Honestly, the recruiting timeline, it looks pretty similar for every company. Initial resume drop, recruiter will reach out. Sometimes you'll have to put all your information again in a form when you do a resume drop. Just be on the lookout for that. Screening and coding challenges are typically next, especially with big companies. And then you'll have an interview or two before you finally get an offer.
Okay. I also just want to mention this typically starts late August, but it can go basically throughout even until April. Like, I knew a lot of people who got offers in April and they started work in May. We didn't want to assign any one of these stages to a certain month that you should be at, because again, don't compare yourself to others. And also it really depends on the role. So SWE usually will recruit first. So as a designer or a data scientist, if you have peers around you getting offers before you, that, don't feel too pressured. It's all about that different timeline.
All right, are there any questions so far?
We can take 2 minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put in the chat, or if you just want to unmute yourself. I can't check the chat, so let me know if we should just move on.
I have a question. When you recruit and you apply these companies, is there deadlines that these companies do? Is it rolling admission, or is it basically just one deadline?
Dorian, you want to take that, or Nathan?
Yeah. Okay. You got it, Nathan.
I can say from my experience, it definitely varies from company to company. Typically, though, it pays to be early. Of dozen applications, those get a lot of support and a lot of attention. So if you're able to be in that first batch, be in that first batch.
Did he cut out for you guys? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he was just saying how it pays to be early, because oftentimes companies will take a look at screen their applicants in batches. So the earlier you are, the better off you are, so to speak.
Yeah, I wanted to address the question, is there a database floating with application deadlines for tech jobs? I actually found a spreadsheet with deadlines for interviews, and we'll be talking more about that later, but most jobs don't have deadlines and you can apply anytime, but I guess it's just better to apply earlier because spots do fill up, and people who do apply earlier have a better chance of getting the job.
If there's no more questions, I'll move on. But if something comes up, feel free to just message me.
All right. I guess there's a question about when are coding interviews usually held, and I guess there's no perfect timeline to this, just like Vicky was saying earlier. So it kind of depends on the company, depends on when you apply, and yeah, Calvin has a good answer for that as well.
Okay, now I'm gonna move on.
Yeah. Gotcha. So now you might think now you want an internship, right? But you might ask yourself, why would a company hire someone who doesn't have an internship experience in the past, right? And this is kind of what I like to call the internship paradox, where you need an internship to get an internship, and it almost feels circular and unbreachable. But lucky for us, building experience is going to be the way we break this paradox, right? So why build experience in the first place? Okay, so the first and the main reason is going to be learning about software. So if you want to be a software engineer or any other kind of role, you need to learn about what you're going to do, right? So this is kind of just like a general truth of life about most things, but you kind of learn by doing. So, you know, getting your hands on some code and actually coding is going to be the best way for you to learn about the things that you like about software, the things that you don't like. And they're also just like, there's so much knowledge out there for you. So this is going to be a great way to get your hands on that. And the next thing is going to be the like proof of knowledge, right? So when you start building experience, that's something that you'll be able to, you know, put on your resume and like talk to recruiters about. And then additionally, you know, when you do land your internship or when you do go start your job, right, a lot of the experiences that you had will kind of reflect in the work that you do, right? Whether it's if you know some framework or you know some programming language, or you've become really good at Google searching over your time, like your experiences will begin to show. And then the last part is the behavioral component, right? So anytime you work on a project, right, you know, you have some troubles, or you like get stuck sometimes and you have to reach out for help, or you're working with teams and sometimes it doesn't go so well. All these things are, you know, fantastic questions that recruiters will ask you, and they're also fantastic opportunities for you to kind of grow and change how you experience things. So now that you are down to build experience, right? How do we build experience? And there's pretty much only one answer. It's projects, projects, and projects, right? So projects are going to be the best way for you to touch on different programming languages, different frameworks, and then build a lot of the skills that you're gonna end up using in your internship or your job, right? And so, you know, you're like, okay, Dorian, I'm down to start a project, but where do I start? And this is actually a super hard question, and one that I was like never able to figure out. But luckily, for us, there are a lot of different ways we can address this. And the most accessible one is going to be classes, right? So you're a university student and you're taking classes, so why not take classes that are project-based, right? So these are some of the major CS courses that are going to be project-based classes. And Duke doesn't have a wide selection, but we have a great selection of courses. So the first one's going to be 307 and 308. And these are going to definitely be like the course that you want to take if you want to learn about software design and implementation, right? So there's a lot of coding, and each project is designed such that you have to go through, you know, these design challenges and then reflect on those. So it's perfect for software engineering. And it's also a team-based class, so you'll definitely get a lot of stories from that, whether they're stories of good teammates or stories of bad teammates, right? All stories are good stories. And then the follow-up to that is CS 408, which is kind of like the next step. So these are real client-based projects. So I took this class a year ago, and my client was a clinic from Honduras, and it was very cool to, you know, work with an actual clinic and an actual body outside of Duke. And, you know, I felt like my solution was pretty impactful for what they were trying to do. And this is also team-based, so you get good experiences and bad experiences. And then CS 290, and there are other special topics course that are a little bit more targeted to a specific domain. So I think one of them is mobile development. And so you get to, you know, build mobile apps and build web apps as well. And then the next way is through hackathons. So if you don't know what a hackathon is, it's basically an event that's usually over 24 hours. And it's just you go to the event and then you build a project from there, from scratch. So the best one, Hack Duke, is our hackathon. And that is super like well organized and really targeted towards people that don't have a lot of experience. So there are a lot of tutorials and introductions to various technologies that you might want to use for your hackathon. And then another one is HackNC, which is UNC's hackathon, also pretty accessible to you. And I guess if we were at Durham, then it would only be like a 30-minute drive away. And then Duke ML also has a lot of events targeted towards people that are interested in data science. So that's an option for you as well.
I will mention Hack Duke and Hack and See are virtual this year, so you can participate in them wherever you are.
Yep. And then another great thing about Duke is that we have a lot of summer programs for computer science. So Code Plus is going to look pretty similar to CS408 in that you're getting real client-based projects and you're working with other Duke students to provide some solution. So a lot of people work with Duke OIT and they're able to like make some really interesting things and learn a lot. Another one is Data Plus. This is hosted by Professor Paul Bendich, and he's a very, very fun guy. And Data Plus is, kind of like the data science analog of Code Plus, where, you have real client projects and you have data and you're trying to, work some sort of problem out. And then CS Plus is a little bit more on the researchy side. So this is a new summer program that Duke has put out. And professors pitch projects to CS Plus, and you're able to select the project you want to work on. And this is a great choice for someone who may be interested in doing like research or something. Right, and then the last one that I'll mention is internships, right? So there are a lot of internships that are targeted towards underclassmen. So some include Google STEP and Facebook University, Twitter University. So these are all specially designed internship programs that are catered towards underclassmen. And it's a really great opportunity for people in diverse backgrounds to kind of learn a little bit more about the software engineering experience. And then another one is the Triangle Area internships. So here we have Optum, Fidelity, SAS, IBM. These are all companies that have offices in the Triangle area, and they're really excited and open to hiring Duke students for internships. So personally, I did my first internship at Optum, and it was a great way to meet a lot of other people and kind of grow some of the skills that I use now. And then you also have standard internships, which the bar is going to be a little bit higher since you're competing with like juniors and upperclassmen. But these are also occasionally are geared towards sophomore and freshmen as well.
We will pause now for questions again. Are there any in the chat?
I think our team is handling the chat pretty well. So
is there one that you want to talk about, or we can also just move on?
Let's see. Yeah, someone said someone asked about putting all right, yeah, so 307 and 308 are definitely higher numbers, and classes like 101 and 201 have really good projects, and you can definitely talk about some of those projects on your resume. A lot of those projects have really foundational computer science skills, which is why you do them in those classes. So those are also great options.
Yeah, and I'll mention that in the resume building.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's the difference between 307 and 308?
Yeah, so I think the experience you'll have in 307 and 308 are going to be pretty similar. I think 308, or maybe 307 is a little bit more caring towards your time. If you feel like you're taking other hard classes, maybe 307 is the right choice. 308 is, from my experience, is going to definitely put some pressure on your clock. So keep that in mind.
308 professors are going to be like, why is no one in my class?
There's also a question about if you can do these internships during the school year. So yeah, I know a few people that are taking the semester off and doing an internship instead. So it's definitely an option later on if you're really ahead on your transcript. Typically not while you're taking classes. That might be hard to juggle, but maybe you can manage it.
Yeah.
I think my number one piece of advice there is just don't get overwhelmed. Just be careful, be honest with yourself. If an opportunity comes up that you think is really constructive, definitely seize it, but also be honest with yourself about your time.
I'll also say for internships that are during like fall semester or spring semester, there is going to be less competition there. And regardless of what other people say, it's really up to you. Like, feel free to take a semester off from school if you want, like, actual work. There's like nothing wrong with not doing school 8 semesters through or less.
All right, maybe the last project or the last question is, can you put a project that you're going to be working on, say next year or something, that you haven't completed yet? So I say if it's like a work in progress, as in like it's something you're actively working on, that's a great thing to put on your project, on your resume. But if it's something that you're only planning on doing, I would probably avoid that because that doesn't show that much skill yet, right? So until you start executing, definitely, yeah.
Should I move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay. Oh, whoops. Okay, cool. So the next section, we will talk about how to write a resume. So first of all, a resume is a short descriptive document, and it's usually just a page or so. So you really want to like summarize yourself. It's going to be a snapshot of your most relevant background, experience, and accomplishments. So like Dorian was saying, these are things that you have done. You probably don't want to put things that like you haven't done yet because it won't paint an accurate picture. It's also used for recruiting. It's basically a way to get your foot in the door at a lot of companies. And it's typically the first item that a potential employer will see about you. So therefore, it's really important because it's like that first impression. And then lastly, a resume can be used for branding. So it's like a proxy for who you are right now or even who you could be. On your resume, just like a portfolio too, you want to put stuff that highlights like what you've worked on and your skills. But if you're like debating over what you should keep, maybe you have like too many things to put on there, definitely keep things that showcase like work that you want to continue working on, because potential employers are going to see that and be like, oh, they know how to do this, like I'm going to assign them to this team. And if it wasn't like work that you really enjoyed, might not be the best to keep it on there. Okay. So a resume is not going to be a detailed description of all your accomplishments ever. That would pretty much be a CV, which people confuse a lot with resumes. CV stands for curriculum vitae, and it's basically a complete written record of someone's career or life work. Can be very extensive. I've seen like 20-page ones, probably longer. You're not trying to cram every single little thing about yourself onto a resume, because how long do you think a typical recruiter looks at your resume? I don't know if we have the poll set up, but just take like a few seconds, think about it in your head, because it's actually only 30 seconds to a minute. And in really extreme cases, like if a recruiter has a lot of applicants to go through, they could take as little as 5 seconds just scanning it over. So this means you really have to make yourself stand out. So now we're going to highlight a little bit about sections, like important sections you should put on your resume, and I'll talk about things that you absolutely need in those sections and then things that are optional. And we'll also go through an example. So first off, the basic sections include your introduction, your education, skills that you can offer, and then work experience. So in the details here, we've listed the required sections, but again, we'll go over this in more detail later. So we're gonna be walking through our favorite president, Akshara's resume. Shout out to Akshara for letting me use this, thank you. So first off, for the introduction, you definitely want to include your name on there. This is typically the biggest thing on your resume because, again, recruiters only looking at it for like, let's say 10 seconds. You want them to at least know your name. And then there should be some sort of contact information on there, so typically your email. You can also include your phone number if you so choose, and other links like your LinkedIn, GitHub, if you have a personal website. Some people choose to put a personal description on there. That's either like a few lines just about who they are, like what kind of work they're looking for. It could include things like looking for summer 2021 internships. Or it could be as simple as like software engineer, just like a quick description like that. And then if you're going to put location, this is typically going to be your desired work location, not like where you're currently applying from. All right, the next large section is education, and here you want to put your school name, your expected graduation date, and then anything you're studying. So like your majors, minors at Duke, your certificates. This is something that we always get questions about, but GPA is actually completely optional, especially for tech and software. Your GPA doesn't really matter, but if you're very proud of your GPA, you can definitely put it on there. I just want to say, like, if your GPA isn't something you're super proud of, it does not count against you, and it doesn't hurt to not include it on there. And then also, some people like to include their high schools. This is only if you have like less experience, or maybe you're like a freshman and you want to include like the high school you were on, you went to on there, along with like the GPA, based off what we said before. Depends whether you want to show it or not. Some people also put their study abroad school there. And then you can also put relevant coursework. So we'll talk a little bit about like coursework later too, but you don't have to put this right under education. As you can see, Akshara has it in a separate section. And coursework is good in cases where you may be applying to a position that doesn't necessarily match what you're studying in school or any of your work experiences. So for example, like if Akshara was applying for a design position, but she's studying like Duke doesn't have a design program in general, but like she's studying comp sci, maybe she wants to show like in her relevant coursework, like, oh, I've taken like UI UX courses or like social site courses. So that's an example of where relevant coursework will help you out. Okay, for the skill section, where's my mouse? There we go. For the skill section, skills include things like software or tools you know, languages you can speak, coding languages, libraries, frameworks, software development kits, and you can also include soft skills on there. The thing I do want to point out about skills is that they are completely varied, and this section and how it looks really depends on you and your goals. Here are just a couple examples I've pulled from previous Catalyst member resumes, and I'll talk a little bit about like specific things on each one that are good. So I really like this top left one because you can see it clearly shows like, here are all the programming skills I know, web development skills I know, languages I can speak. And then on top of that, they've broken it down into their level of experience. So it's very clear like, oh, I'm fluent in these, but I'm conversational in these. Some people also like to use dot notations like here and here. I will say dot notation isn't always the best. Like it may be visually cool, but you're not really giving the recruiter information about like how are you evaluating yourself? Like what exactly does 3 dots mean? So this person here, they've actually labeled every single one of their skills with a little tag that maps to a key that says like prior experience to like proficient. Another thing I want to show is in like when you're talking about your skills, you can use nicer language. Like for example, instead of maybe just prior experience or like kind of knowing, you can say I'm learning this. So like you're advanced in these skills, but you're currently learning these skills. Or like these are my skills and these are my specialties. Like language like that is gonna help in some way or another. Some people like to include their interests under the skill section if it's at like the bottom of your resume or on the side. This is just a good way to like add a little more personality if you want. And then here, this is an example of like a design skill thing. So depending on what role that you're applying to, you can move around these sections. So like I'd probably move design tools and UX skills above development in this case. But yeah, I just wanted to say the skill section is going to be very variable. You do not have to reference someone's and make it exactly like theirs. All right, next, the last big section is work experience. And this is going to take up most of your resume. And this will include things like internships you've had, research you're doing, and any jobs like on-campus jobs, restaurants, or teaching assistant jobs. You can optionally also put summer programs, any organizing committees you're on, or high school activities if you're a first year. But you may be wondering, how can I show experience if I don't have any experience? Like a lot of people may not have a prior internship, and this is kind of what Dorian was talking about before, that internship paradox, right? But these are all things that you can use instead of like an internship, and like personal projects, volunteer leadership experience, activities or involvement on campus, awards and honors, and coursework like we were saying before. So you'll write about all of these pretty much the same way you would write about other types of work experience. And we're going to talk about how to write about that now. So how you want to describe all these types of experience is going to be, you want to like really summarize your impact. So you want to, if you're going to have a lot of content under each work experience, definitely use a bulleted list because that's easier to scan. You want to include action words in first person, but exclude using like I did this or I blah, blah, blah. So instead of things like, oh, I like did this or like worked on this, use more actionable terms like built this, improved this. And of course, you probably hear this a lot, but on your resume, you want to quantify impact wherever possible. So this doesn't always mean statistics. Like not all of us have the luxury of saying like, or even the timeline of saying like, oh, I improved adoption by like 50% or like this X amount of number, whatever. Like it's not always about the numbers. Impact can also be shown through like, oh, the project I worked on is currently in beta testing, or like I tested this with these different types of people, or like the project I'm working on is referenced and used by my team members in their own work. Like that's also showing impact. And then you also want to explain technologies, languages, or skills used under these experiences. So here an example of like Akshar's previous resume and then the same content but better. So here we can see like back-end Uberstar engineering intern on the customer identity platform subteam. So already like one half of this entire description is just repeating what's already on the top line. So you don't want to do something like this. You don't want to tell them like what you were. You want to show like what you did and the impact that you had. And then here, like implemented a feature for managing trusted devices. So again, that's like, okay, that's a little bit about like what she did. But as you can see, the improvement would be implemented a feature, blah, 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 using Golang, Cassandra, and Thrift. So she's explaining like the technologies and the skills that she used. And then down here, learned how to write and implement 100% task coverage, so you have some impact in there, coded in a new language, and worked with the microservice architecture. Okay. So if you already have a resume, these are just going to be some quick tips on how you can improve it and maximize it. First of all, start building as a freshman. So Dorian already covered good classes for projects, but he mentioned like more upper level ones, and he also did mention like even intro classes can have really good work that you can put up and use if there's nothing else. So you could create a separate section for like projects, or you could say like experience and projects if you don't have like a lot of previous work experience per se. You don't know how many resumes we've seen that say like autocomplete or Huffman compression, which are both projects I work on in 201. Cache simulation is also a really popular one from 250. So those are perfectly fine to put on your resume. And then, yeah, also like we mentioned before, start attending hackathons now to create projects that help you learn and give you a chance to talk about that experience, like working with people. So hackathons are just a really good way to like hunker down and get a project done in a really short amount of time, and then also in like a really conducive environment because everyone around you is like coding as well. And there's going to be lots of learning resources and mentors around. And then these are just some general formatting tips. Most importantly, your resume should be readable. Do not overstuff and put everything on there. Keep it to one page. You can order your sections based on relative importance. So if you're applying to a role where it's like leadership might be more important, you can move leadership above experience. This is obvious, but your font should be legible. Don't use like cursive or Comic Sans because that's annoying. Or make sure you have a good font size. And don't over shrink your margins because you want to like just make it like presentable and easy on the eyes. Another thing is, I guess it doesn't really matter for virtual, but once we're back to in-person recruiting, it's always good to have a black and white copy on hand, just so when you print it out, it's like easy to read, and in case like you don't have a color printer. And it's also good to have like a plain text version on hand. Sometimes when you apply, especially like to companies that use older software, they may not be able to read your like file format for some reason. So it's good to just like have a plain text version that you can write in like text edit or your notes app on hand. Yeah, so a lot of companies will use things called ATSs or applicant tracking systems. And it's basically a tool that recruiters use to manage like a large database of applicants, and it'll filter those who best match for a particular job. So ATSs can automatically compare your resume to that job description. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, when you when you upload your resume into an ATS, the recruiter won't necessarily view the file. Honestly, a human might not even see the file. Some ATSs parse the document into a digital profile first. So this is why it's important to make sure you have a good file format, like use docx or a .pdf file. Also make sure your resume isn't like unnecessarily columned or complicated in terms of shapes. A lot of ATSs are outdated and unintelligent, so they might not be able to like, when they do parse it, you might be losing a lot of like text content there and keywords. It's really important that you have the correct keywords, because when you are putting your resume through an ATS, let's say the recruiter is looking for like a product manager, they'll probably put in keywords for like, oh, I want to search for people who have the keyword product and management or manager, because this automatically, I'm sorry, is it really loud? Do you hear like lawn mowing?
No, you're good.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, like I was saying, keywords are really important because recruiters might be looking for certain keywords. And if they're saying like, oh, I want product and management, they're filtering for people who may have had previous like product management experience. So if you don't have those words on your resume, you're going to be filtered out immediately. You don't necessarily have to lie and say like, I was a product management intern. You can just say things like, I worked on this product, or like, I managed this in like other parts of your resume. So it's just really important to tailor your resume to that job description. And most importantly, never, ever, ever lie in your resume. This is pretty self-explanatory, but with like technology that's available today, an employer can easily check on your background, and it's totally okay to, everyone wants to like present themselves in the best light. So it's okay to like use flashier words to up your appeal, but you never want to lie about something that you didn't do. And this slide is just a couple resources. So if you're looking for inspiration on how you want to format it, Best Folios has a lot of good options. Also tools for building your resume. If like Google Docs or Microsoft Word isn't your cup of tea, you can also use sites like Novo Resume or Figma, which is a design tool, and they have a lot of good templates on there that you can just like take and modify. Regarding content, most schools have like resume guides in their career center. So that's really helpful if you want to just like look for how you should phrase certain things or like how to show more impact. And then lastly, like we'll be hosting office hours throughout the semester. Probably we might have a resume review of sorts in a few weeks. So you can always reach out to us. Okay, I will pause here. Are there any questions?
So we've been pretty active in the chat. So if anyone does have a question or wants to hear Vicky's take on one of the questions that was answered, you know, you can unmute yourself or just type your question in the chat again.
Vicky, someone asked any like advice on like making resumes prettier for design. So if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So that resource I was talking about, figma.com/community, you will have to sign up to apply for a community because it's in beta testing right now, but they basically, designers all around the world like uploaded a lot of cool templates, and there's really good ones for resumes. So I would go there, and you can just like look at their templates and change things around. Figma is a design tool, but it's really, really easy to use. I'm sure like some of you guys can attest to that. Like if you're like Akshara, yeah, she just started like, she switched writing her resume on, I don't know what you used before, but she started doing it on Figma, and it was like really easy.
Yeah.
In terms of other inspiration, like Bestfolios and Dribbble is really good. I would just reference like resumes that you like, save photos somewhere, and then like tailor it to however you want. But in terms of tools, I definitely recommend Figma. It's the easiest to use, and they also have this thing called like auto layout, so it's really nice if you want to do a quick modification. You don't have to like change all the indentations and like move things around. It'll just like automatically format it for you. Whoa, there's 85 messages in the chat.
I think we have a question about the 2-column resumes getting parsed well by the automated resume software.
Like, does it get parsed well?
Yeah, does it get parsed well?
Yeah, I think 2 columns is fine. You don't want to do like, I haven't really seen 3 columns, but I think 3 columns should be okay. Try not to do 4. Also, I don't really know how you could fit anything in 4 if you had 4 columns. Also, you don't want like wacky shapes. I have never seen this before, but maybe some really creative resumes have them in like circles or like shapes on there. 2 columns is perfectly fine though. And again, if you stick it with a PDF file format or like a docx, most ATSs should account for those. Cool, okay. Gonna move on.
All right, next I'm going to talk to you guys about LinkedIn. Also want to say as a preface, apologies for the Wi-Fi issues. I've turned off my video, so hopefully my audio shouldn't cut out as often. All right, so the goal of LinkedIn really is to go beyond your resume. I've heard it stated as, while an effective targeted resume, by the way, you should always do targeted resumes, can show a recruiter what you can do in that particular job. An effective LinkedIn really shows who you are. It can showcase all your different multifaceted passions and projects and community service and classes. It is really your ultimate showcase for showing everything that's not in your resume and everything you want to show people who visit your LinkedIn. So the common advice that I hear from recruiters right off the bat is that you probably should never put a mission statement in your resume, but you should always put an introduction in your LinkedIn. That's a really quick way to show off your writing skills and show off some personality just right from the start. Also, always when you put a job description, I have a really simple formula that focuses on the mission. First, you want to put the purpose and goal of your work. Then you want to put how you did it, include all the different tools and languages and teams you may have worked on, and then put the accomplishments. That can be, you know, we did X, we raised it by X%, and whatever fits your particular job that you performed. With any job that you have, with any job description, with any project description, always show off links if possible. Recruiters love outside information and tangible things that they can view in their web browsers. So drop any sort of articles or publications or any type of portfolio in there that's specific to each job description and project description. And of course, always put down volunteer experience, open source projects, particularly big things that you've worked on, and skills. Those are really, really cool to put in your LinkedIn. Also, for the record, LinkedIn is probably the first thing that most recruiters will see about you. They're more likely to check your LinkedIn than they are to check your actual resume. It's really important for networking. It's also really important for just staying on top of different opportunities. You're most likely to hear about a really cool company doing work you believe in that's hiring on LinkedIn. So definitely, definitely, definitely have some sort of profile and keep it authentic, keep it real. You know, don't be inauthentic or posturing, because everybody hates that on LinkedIn. Definitely 100% keep it authentic. All right, now a little bit about building your network. My first piece of advice is, if you see someone posting cool content, send an invite. I've seen a lot of really interesting people all kinds of things that are built to help students like us. If you see somebody posting cool stuff, just send them an invite. Chances are they're really happy to connect with you. Same goes for the alumni network. We're really lucky to go to Duke. So always, 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 don't be afraid to work backwards and find a company you really believe in with a mission you really believe in, and then find an alumnus whose work you really enjoy and ask them to chat. That's oftentimes a really good way to push your foot in the door and to get a really personal connection.
I think he cut out.
Now, definitely put your email down and get involved in some of those. They're often an hour commitment or so and can have a lot of benefit.
What's an hour commitment or so?
Oh, open conferences or different types of networking events. Those are huge and they're all over the place right now being virtual, so most of them are open. Above all else though, be respectful and be gracious and don't be afraid to reach out to anybody.
I will also say that a empty LinkedIn, I think, is better than an unfleshed out LinkedIn. So don't.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah. If you're gonna work on your LinkedIn, just full send. Make it really nice and fleshed out.
All right, a little bit about cold connecting on LinkedIn or even warm connecting on LinkedIn. That invitation note can go a long, long, long way. If you find an alumnus you're interested in talking to, if you find somebody from an event you're interested in talking to, or if you're interested in talking to just about anybody on LinkedIn, those 300 characters can go a long way. So my formula for that is first introduce yourself. Say, for example, hi, I'm Nathan, I'm a student at Duke. State what you like about their content or their job. Be specific and be candid. Personality goes a long, long way on LinkedIn. State that you'd love to connect or that you'd love to chat or something personal that invites another response, and always end with a thank you. There's a professor at Duke named Aaron Dinnan who posted an article not too long ago that I really, really love that talks about tips with cold emailing. That one is specifically to entrepreneurs, but all of its lessons apply really well to cold emailing for students. I don't know if any of y'all can post the link into the chat real quick, but that is an awesome resource and I definitely recommend that everybody take a look at it.
Yeah, so now I'll be going over recruiting tactics. So first up, referrals. So a referral is basically when an employee or intern working at the company gives you a recommendation to apply for the company later in the year. So why ask people for referrals? Well, if you do end up receiving a referral from an employee, the company will consider you a priority applicant. So this can be advantageous to you in two ways. Most companies will review your application earlier in the process. And so this will help a lot because spots fill up quickly. So the earlier your application gets reviewed, the earlier you will have your interview. Some other companies will also offer fewer rounds. So you can skip you can skip a round of technical interviews. It's also an incentive for the employee to refer you because if you do end up getting the position, the referrer will receive a referral bonus. Yeah, so there are two major types of referrals, and the first of which is a resume drop, and this is common among big companies. And the referral will submit your contact information and resume, and then the company will consider you as a priority applicant. And the second of which is emailing the recruiter. So this is more common among smaller or medium-sized companies. This is a very strong vouch because employees have to directly email the recruiters, and it entails a very strong recommendation. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, how should you ask for a referral? When you're asking for a referral, there are probably three groups of people you might consider: friends, colleagues, and people you've met through networking. So depending on the situation and context, it might or might not be appropriate to ask them for a referral. So for example, you've probably seen this a lot, but if someone offers to refer you in a group chat because you share the same organization as them, then yeah, feel free to reach out to them. If a friend you know is willing to vouch for you and they haven't offered to give you a referral, then it's also a good idea to reach out to you. Depending on the situation, you might or might not find it appropriate to ask the person if if you've just met them through networking or they haven't offered to give you a referral. So if you're asking a friend for a referral, text or messenger are appropriate ways to reach out to them. If you're not as comfortable or you don't have their text, if you don't have their phone number or Facebook, you can also reach out to them through LinkedIn or email. If you're hesitant about asking them at all, it's also a good idea to reach out to them and express an interest in learning more about their company and just have a conversation with them about their role and their company. And then towards the end of the conversation, you can ask them about any open positions they have. It's probably not a good idea to just ask them for a referral then, but after your conversation, they might be more inclined to give you a referral. One thing to remember is that try not to make your contact feel obligated to provide your referral, because oftentimes if they don't, it's not a reflection of your relationship with the person. Sometimes referrers only have a certain number of spots they can give referrals out to, or they might not think you're a good fit for the company. Yeah, this is a note for next year, but when you're asking for a referral, always remember to ask early, because sometimes when people have internships, they can only give out referrals up until their internship end date. And so a lot of internships end before school starts. Yeah, so these are some things you can use to ask for a referral. The second might be more appropriate if you don't really know the person well, and so you want to lead with your experiences and your interest of working at that company, and then go on to ask them about a referral. So job fairs. Job fairs aren't happening for a while, but Duke hosts 2 main job fairs in the fall, the first of which is Tech Connect, and this is happening on September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is more of a tech career fair, so you'll have roles like software engineering or hardware. And then a day later, career fair is happening, so that's taking place on Wednesday and Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and this is a school-wide career fair. Oh, so Tech Connect are generally for students enrolled in Duke Engineering, Computer Science, Data Science, Statistics, or Math. And because it's virtual this year, student registration is required, and you can find registration if you just search up Duke Tech Connect. And Career Fair, there's not information released about registration yet, but tech and non-tech companies do show up, and so you see companies like Abercrombie, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Traditionally, even though some companies may seem non-technical, almost all of them have technical roles now, like for example, Walmart e-commerce. Okay, so now you might be wondering how to navigate job fairs virtually. So because they're virtual this year, you do have to register before the event, and it's really important to update your profile and resume in the virtual portal, because that's what employers use to see your information and get your resume. Even though it is virtual, dressing professionally is always really important, because dress to impress. And yeah, that's the first impression recruiters will get of you. And before the career fair, you want to make sure to research who will be there and make a list and be ready with a written and verbal pitch. So this will just help you be as efficient as possible when going through the career fair, and you'll be prepared to ask questions tailored to the company of your choice. Also, sit somewhere distraction-free so there are no background noises around, and make sure to follow up with people you've talked to after the career fair. Okay, so what to wear. For Tech Connect and Career Fair, it's most appropriate to wear something that's business casual. You don't have to dress in full suits. For tech career fairs, they're usually more casual because recruiters will likely be wearing their company's t-shirts. And so like a nice blouse for girls, or maybe just a polo shirt for guys, is pretty good. Yeah, so again, research your top 10 companies at the fair and what makes them unique, so you can ask specific questions and also save time, because you know which companies to go to. So some example of generic questions you could ask for any company are here. So like, could you tell me a bit about your internship programs? What type of roles do you offer, etc. And some specific questions are good too, because they show your interest in the company and that you've actually done research. And so one way to show that you are interested in the company is to show that you've done research. And so, for example, you could ask about how Optum is innovating in health tech space, and it shows that you know what the company Optum does and what products they're producing right now. Oh, so when you do end up meeting the recruiter, you should first greet the recruiter and give your pitch, and then lead into the conversation by asking your recruiters questions. And then once your recruiter responds, make sure you continue to establish your interest in the position and ask any more questions you have. And then at the end of the conversation, thank the recruiter and say that you will follow up. So to start a conversation, it's a good idea to lead in with your experience or your interest in the company. So for example, if my name is David and I worked at Data Plus, I would say, hi, my name is David. I spent last summer working on some statistics project related to Duke basketball. And then lead into the company by saying, oh, I heard that SAS is also doing work with a number of sports analytics startups. And then could you tell me more about these positions? So after you've asked enough questions and you want to end the conversation, you can end the conversation by saying, that sounds like a great opportunity, and what's the best way for me to move forward?
Also, just be mindful that there's a lot of people at these events, whether it's virtual or not. So oftentimes if it's like in person, you'll see a line behind you. So just be sensitive with the time that you spend with each recruiter.
Yeah, so if you do end up getting their contact information, here's just like a template of what you can use to follow up. And make sure you thank the recruiter again. And yeah. So company events, these are usually hosted by Duke or by different organizations. Company events are much more casual than actual career fairs, and there usually will be a lot of people in attendance. So recruiters will begin by introducing their company, and then they'll also bring alumni in to speak about their experiences. And if you really want to get one-on-one time with the recruiter, it's better to attend the career fair or Tech Connect because again, like a lot of people are in attendance. So if you really do have questions, you would have to wait until after the presentation is over to talk to the recruiter. And some of these events also have resume drops. And so yeah, it's a good idea to go and check out some of them. We'll also keep you updated and send emails for company events. Yeah. Oh, another thing I wanted to note before I talk about company events again, like if you have two companies that are showing up at both Tech Connect and Career Fair, it's better to go to Career Fair because usually a lot more people are at Tech Connect. And so these are just a couple of events that Duke is hosting. You can find all of these and more information about them on Career Connections. But yeah, here are just some events. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming and for staying for an hour. I really appreciate it. And I know like everyone here does. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them right now, but you can also check out our website at tinyurl.com/catacourse. And we'll be hosting more classes in the upcoming weeks. We'll have a whole 7 other weeks for SWE preparation for interview prep. And then our next week is dedicated to like a crash course week. So we'll be going over design and data science and startups and like VCs and more. Yeah, does anyone have any questions at this time?
Feel free to leave if not, or unmute yourself, or chat it, or reach out to us later. Lots of ways to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. We can just stay on the line for like 5 more minutes and wait.
Should I stop the recording or just wait?
Yeah, stop the recording.
Okay.
Thanks.